What's up, everybody? This is another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals. We are so glad you are here because today I'm very excited to meet for the first time Cris, who is with the wonderful Oakleaf Cottage in just outside of Chattanooga. And Cris, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Lots going on in the world, but lots going on in business and lots going on in the wedding world. And so there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah, I hear
Uh,
that.
yeah, just for frame of reference for historical purposes, as people listen, this is filmed literally the day after the Capitol um, invasion, and so you know that's where we are in the world. It'll air later, but just for everybody, and that's what we're feeling right now in this moment as we interview. So Cris, tell us a little bit about the wonderful Oakleaf Cottage.
Where would you like me to start?
Beginning.
The beginning. Well, once upon a time. No, I guess the easiest place to start is when we started looking. We were looking for a place to have kind of our dream property. We had actually for years been dreaming of having something that was more like, it was going to have a barn and it was going to have like individual little cottages. And we have like files full of like pictures of like what these cottages would look like. And it was going to have like this big garden and we were going to have like all of these homegrown meals and stuff like that. We came across Oakleaf and that was it. The whole dream just went out the window. We figured we would have the occasional wedding. We never thought we would do something like this. So like we bought this piece of property. It was listed at 5 p.m. I saw it on my phone at 5 a.m. I immediately emailed the realtor. We saw it at noon and we put in our contract at 2:00. So we don't even buy shoes that fast. Like, I'm not kidding. I mean, so now here we were trying to figure out what to do with it. And we met, I have a friend who's a photographer. Her name's Hillary Moore with Wandermore. And she was like, well, why don't you make it a wedding venue? And I was like, because we don't know anything about weddings. And so we started doing research and we said, okay, this looks interesting. And so we started, we remodeled the cottage part first because that was here, and made it kind of an Airbnb, VRBO kind of thing at first while we worked on the barn. And we did all the work here ourselves. So as far as like that was an actual like functioning barn. It had horses and goats and chickens and a dirt floor, and it sloped 3 feet higher at one end than the other. It just kind of like, we just only wanted to do like really small weddings at first because we were like, do we really want to do this? We don't know anything about like what we're doing. So we just had like the first year, it was just all really small weddings, like 40 people or fewer. And we discovered we really have a passion for it. We decided we really like it. We enjoy working with couples. Kind of looking back, we look at like all the things that we did throughout our lives, 20 years of marriage, like what we have done. And we were like, it all kind of does kind of go in this direction. Just the wedding part's kind of the surprise.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, so you bought this property in less time you buy shoes. Tell me, like, when you were going through that transition phase of doing the Airbnb thing with this beautiful place, and then you were moving towards I think we're going to do this wedding thing. At any point during the Airbnb part, did you say like, well, maybe we'll just stick with this? Like, did that ever cross your mind in this whole project? Because I'm sure the property is beautiful. So I can't imagine people just didn't show up,
Right. I think it was kind of this transition where we finally just did have to say, like, to have this place booked for 3 nights for a VRBO or a vacation rental stay no longer made sense because we were doing enough showings of the venue itself and it was starting to actually hurt potential revenue. And so it kind of worked out well as like a gradual transition part where we would just be like, okay, we'll only open up like certain weekends for vacation rental. And then the rest of the time it would be, we'll say it's for venue purposes. And it just kind of, I would say evolved naturally that way. And then this year we had to change insurance companies because, 2020, all the things. And so they said, no, you can't do vacation rental anymore. And we were like, okay, it's fine. It worked out.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so let's talk about the different settings about the place, just so people can get an idea. Just obviously we're audio here. We're not actually sitting in the venue because of COVID. I hope one day I can actually travel to these venues and actually do these interviews like on site.
That would be really cool.
Oh man, it'd be so much fun. But but here we are, COVID 2021. So I have to sort of be mindful of that. But the tell us about the different settings you kind of offer.
Well, I think probably the most striking is, of course, that whole setting up against the side of the mountain. It's like right over there. So I'm kind of like looking at it. But it's just it's the side of Lookout, and it's just these big, mossy, giant boulders. And then, of course, we're also just set completely in the forest. We're on 28 acres, and we border Cloudland Canyon State Park. So it's pretty private. And so you get a lot of different like wooded areas, you're out here. So the chances for cool photos are pretty prevalent. And then we have two different ceremony spots. So there's one that we call the Forest View Site. And in the winter, you've got a really pretty good view of the next mountain, which is Sand Mountain over there. And that's the one that has like all the string lights, and it ends at like the biggest oak tree. I mean, it's huge. It would take like 3 people to encircle it. It's just a big tree. And the other one goes up against the side of that mossy mountainous rock side of the mountain. So it's really cool there. And then of course we have the cottage that you can get ready in. You can stay overnight. We are allowed to do one night. They permitted that. So that was, that was the part that I was really worried about when they were wanting us to change the insurance. But that, no problem. So yeah, you can stay in here, you can get ready in here. And that works out well. It's got 4 bedrooms. It sleeps up to 9 people. And of course, it's got like a big kitchen over there that's great for your caterers to really spread out in. We have them cook off site, but, and then we have the barn itself, which is, whitewashed. We just put brand new doors on it. So, yeah.
Was the barn a pre-existing portion of the cottage, or was that something built second?
Oh, it was here. It was here. It was a functioning, actual, very scary looking barn. I had a friend that came over after we bought the place, and she said, "You're gonna do what?" She's like, "It's really creepy in here." Like the previous owners had like 5 kids, and as the kids grew up, they would outgrow their boots. And so they actually had nailed those boots to the ceiling in the barn, and it gave a weird vibe.
I love barn weddings. Barns are like some of my favorite settings because they all look different on the inside. It's like even though they are barn, they have that basic sort of same architecture, but everyone that you go in just has their own personal touch for every venue that you go to. So it's really cool like that. I find that always a fun thing whenever I'm showing up to a venue to do my job. So tell me, what were you doing previous to being being a part of like a wedding venue? I mean, like what was your career path up to then?
It kind of winds a bit. I'm one of those people that I go back and forth. So I have my degree is actually in mass communications. And so I started out in journalism and writing and editing and all that. And I got tired of that. And so I started studying about interior decorating. And so my entire career has been, okay, I'm sick of working at a desk. Let's go design somebody's house or something for a while. And then I would get tired of running around and doing stuff and all of the things that are complicated about running your own business. And so I would go running back to being employed somewhere. And so when we bought this, I had actually just finished an event venue up in Townsend. And So maybe it was partly on the mind, I guess, maybe, but I was also working full time for a construction company.
Mhm. I love this career. I like this world of uh, the wedding world we live in because it seems like seems like kind of plucks people from all walks of life. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like, oh, I was doing mass communications. No, I was, you know, doing something else. I was a lawyer, or I mean, like you'd be surprised, like just from the people I've been able to interview, how many people had a completely different career path and then somehow made a left turn that then left them here. Um,
Right.
and what I love about the wedding business is that the people who find themselves in it become extremely passionate about it. There's not you know, obviously doing your job as a vendor in any sort of part of it is difficult because we are ultimately in the service business of giving that service to the client. Um, but the passion behind it, because of the stakes of what the day represents, sort of just makes you inherently passionate. I've not met a single person that has not been passionate about their business in this business. Kind of interesting, right?
I would say if you're not passionate for this business, you're not going to stay in it because the demands are so high. Because, I'm sure you get this too, where it's like, oh, I would love to have an event every weekend, or I would love to, have a party every weekend, or, that must be like so much fun. Yes, it is a lot of fun, but it is also an extraordinary amount of work. I mean, it's Herculean sometimes. And so if you don't love it, you're not going to stay.
Right. It's true. I don't. Yeah, I mean, everybody just seems to be just so excited every single wedding that they do, and that goes for me too. But the feeling I get is that with COVID and everything, that everybody sort of has a positive outlook for 2021 so far.
Mhm.
Obviously, a lot of things got moved to 2021 from 2020, and a lot of a lot of weddings, a lot of things have changed. What has been your take on this whole process of the evolution of getting till now, 2021, through the last 9 months, and what does the next 12 to 18 months look like for you?
The next 12 to 18 months are actually looking really good. The majority of our 21 calendar is actually already booked. At least most of the Saturdays are gone. And some of those are moved from 2020. Most of our weddings decided to go ahead and proceed, even though, they had to reduce their head counts and everything in order to comply with the Georgia mandate. Um, but, I mean, I don't blame anybody for moving. I mean, it's your wedding. I mean, that's at the end of the day, like you said, this is a service industry. We're here to help our couple celebrate their wedding. So it has been, I mean, it's stressful for them and it's stressful for us too, because we're sitting there going, okay, how do we survive? How do we pivot? I hate that word. Um,
I say it a lot, but like it is 100% overused. It's
yeah.
I've been using other words like transition and shift lately.
Shift
Anyway,
is a good word.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but sorry, I didn't mean to break your train of thought. Please keep going.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. So, like, one of the things that we had done last year is we created what we called the Rona package. So it's 50 people or fewer, and it was fewer hours, and it actually was able to fill in those dates that were vacated by larger weddings. And so overall, we actually had a pretty good year. So I think as far as 21 is concerned, I'm really hoping that everything goes back to normal before too long. Um, I, you know, I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, the wedding industry is, like a quarter or half $1 trillion industry. And I think the average wedding spend is somewhere in 2019 around $33,000 per wedding.
Right.
With this current climate, this whole idea of the micro wedding has come up, so that people can get on with their big day and move forward. And while it helps not clog the calendar for the next year that's coming,
Mhm.
for new business and stuff, it does create an interesting economic issue. I think that not enough people are talking about, in that now that this micro wedding is sort of in vogue, how long does it stay? And is it really economically viable for the future as it pertains to the vast amount of vendors that exist and that live off of that, essentially that average of $33,000 split between all of the different vendors? Now that's been shrunk just, so dramatically. I wonder just your thoughts on, like, where do you see that going? Do you see it as a phase? Do you see it as like it's here to stay? How do you feel about all that?
I personally think once all this is over, it's going to be like the roaring 20s. We're going to be right back to wanting to celebrate, and we're going to be so excited to be able to gather again that it's going to be larger weddings. I think we're going to be seeing ourselves booked at capacity again. Our capacity is only 125, so we're kind of a small venue to begin with. Our clientele tends to be like very boho. They like to really dress things up with lots of florals and everything. So in terms of budgets, I think it kind of helps just in having that smaller space. But in terms of the micro weddings, I think to some degree it's going to stay, but mostly like maybe during the week as a way of not having as extravagant a budget. Or like what we've seen this year, or this past year, I should say, we would have some of these micro weddings. And so they would take some of that budget that they were going to have on food, and they went ahead and put it towards something else that they would have, like even better pictures or additional lodging for their guests or that kind of thing. So it was just kind of, I think that to some degree, some of those weddings are more elaborate whenever they're micro. But yeah, I think when this is all over, it's going to be I think we're going to be right back to big weddings, and I think people are going to be really ready to party.
And I think that's a fair assessment. I really like what you said, and I don't know that I've heard anybody quite say it like that, in that the micro wedding isn't going to stay around, but it's going to shift to the weekday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a viable solution for the micro wedding if venues are like, hey, you don't want to pay the big price for the weekends, but here's the weekday, and we could do these micro wedding things, and that's it, and you still serve the client and you move on. It does shorten the days off in the week.
Yeah.
Or it does make it elongates your work week. I should say, maybe that's a better way of saying it. And I wonder, like, the long-term effects of that as it pertains to staffing and those types of things. Speaking of that, like, how much staff do you guys typically have for the cottage?
For an event, we typically have about 4 to 5 people. Sometimes it's a bigger wedding. These smaller weddings, of course, this past year we were more at like 3, maybe 4 people total. I do have a part-time venue manager. Her name's Autumn, and she's fabulous. And then, of course, we just got like various other crews that come in that clean for us. We've got some fabulous guys that come in and take care of everything there. So it does take a good crew. It takes an excellent crew. And we just had our end of the year party a couple weeks ago, talked about like all the things we'd like to see change or what we would like to improve on for next year. And we just have like a really good group. Everybody gets along, and we're all just ready. We're all just ready for this next season.
Now, am I right in that, from reading your bio, that your husband has a big part in this business as well?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your husband and what he does for the business.
Yes. So he has always had an interest in building and remodeling and all of that. So together, the two of us have redone, and I don't want to say flipped, but we have remodeled and then later sold about 11 houses. And so he's one of those guys who can just build anything. I mean, you go, okay, I don't know how you're going to pull this off. And he somehow figures it out. I mean, he stares at it for a few days and he's like, you know what, if I built a scissor lift like this, I could do that. And you're like, how are you going to build that? Well, he figures that out. I mean, it's unbelievable the stuff that he can just pull together. So he's just got an incredible creative mind. And so here at the venue, he's the one, obviously he does all the maintenance around here. Well, not all, sometimes I change filters and stuff too, but he's the one that's engineering. And you got to understand, engineering on the side of a mountain is a bear. This is a whole new thing. Like, I mean, venue on flat ground sometimes just sounds like a dream, because once you have mountain slope, and we've got like anywhere between 30 to 45% grade, depending upon where you are on this property, you've got a lot of things to consider, like runoff and drainage, and understanding too that the mountain is alive. It moves. It doesn't stay in one spot. It's a living, breathing thing, is what we have really started to realize after some time being here. And so you have to calculate all of that. So anything that we do in terms of changes and improvements around here, we have to really consider how that mountain works. And he really has brilliantly been figuring it all out.
What so as the day-to-day thing, he's more on the maintenance side. You're obviously, like on the sales, and obviously like organizing everything and making sure everything's good. Do you guys have anybody else on your team at all, or is it just you two?
Oh no, we have Autumn, who's our venue manager. And I'll say, Dave also does a number of tours. So he does meet people also. And on wedding day, he is here throughout the event also. So a lot of times he's our shuttle driver. What our parking situations at the bottom of the hill. And so we shuttle all guests up top. There's like very little parking up here. So you always have this park-like feeling up top. So that is a big portion of his job, is to manage that driveway and be shuttling people top to bottom. Our venue manager her name is Autumn. And she has been getting us, we've been on a CRM, we've been using Dubsado. And so she has currently taken over getting us completely set up in Dubsado. Like I had kind of gotten us like partway in my corporate jobs, I had used CRMs, but I have been so busy. If it's me by myself, I could not have the time between answering the emails and running the day-to-day of the business. There was no time for me to like fully integrate everything or really fully use that program to where it needed to be. And so she's had more of that time. So she's been able to work on that. So we're finally seeing, more usage out of that CRM. And then she also gives the tours. She's here on wedding days. She has brought in like so much added energy and positivity. I mean, like you have to have positivity anyway, but I mean, she's been a wonderful asset.
Yeah. The funny thing you said about that was that I also used Dubsado.
Oh, great.
It's sort of like a lesser known CRM, but it's very customizable and it's very affordable.
Yes.
It's I love the idea that all my signing documents don't have to go through another third party company like DocuSign or whatever, and it's all built into the system. So shout out Dubsado for making our small business world go round.
This episode brought to you by.
Yeah. See, if I had only known, I could approach with the sponsorship and
Oh, maybe another episode we'll talk about it. Yeah, no, I mean, I went with Dubsado because it seemed to have so many more options. It was more complicated to set up. It's not easy like HoneyBook. It's not like, oh, you only have these things to set up, but it's so customizable, which makes the learning curve that much more difficult.
Yeah, that's but as wedding professionals know, CRM is the way the world works. If you don't have
how else you'd survive.
You can't survive. It's just not going to happen. No. So that's really cool. So you've got Autumn and your husband and yourself, and that's pretty much the core of the team, right?
That's the core. And then of course there's the event folks. So yeah, we've got a really good group, I think.
That's cool. So walk with me how far some of these locations are from each other. So if a prospective bride or groom is listening, or maybe an vendor that's hoping to work at your venue at some point, can't speak today. So how far is the barn from the cottage? Like how far is like some of the shots for the wedding or potential places for the actual ceremony? How far is that away from the cottage? Like give us some sort of steps.
Everything's actually very walkable. The barn is maybe 200 feet from the cottage, so it's not far. The Forest View ceremony spot is actually like right outside the front steps here. So a lot of our brides, as they're walking down the aisle, if that's the spot that they have chosen, they just go right down the steps and then they go right to the aisle. So it's not far at all. The majority of the wedding party is just right here, ready to walk down the aisle. And then as far as between the cottage and the barn, a lot of times we'll have that plated service for, through caterers, and they'll need a few extra staff people, and sometimes they'll pull in some of ours too to help bring food over, because we don't have like a catering spot in the barn or right next to the barn. Um, and so that might be one small logistical challenge, but it's just overcome by more people. And then, the next ceremony spot, that one that's up against the rocks of the barn, that is directly behind the barn. You literally like walk outside the barn and down the steps, and there they are. And then that space actually works out well for other activities too. A lot of times that's a space for cocktail hour. It's a good location for like a lounge area. We've had dance floors out there. We've had tents set up out there. So everything's very, very, very convenient, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like everything's really close by, which makes it very convenient for, like I said, the bride and groom to kind of get around to, you know, take the photos and do all their things. Uh, so how long has this actually been going? Like from the time you got, when do you guys actually buy the property? What was the date?
Um, it was June 19, 2016.
Okay.
So Juneteenth we bought.
So
um,
you bought it on Juneteenth, and then of 16, and then you how long did it take you to build out everything?
it was about a year. I would say it was our first event was toward the end of August of 2017.
Hmm. So
So, but we're doing everything ourselves, like all that concrete. I mean, we had concrete trucks come up, but like sidewalks and stuff like that, that's been Dave mixing that. And you can get a truckload of dirt brought up, but in order for it to go where it's supposed to go, that's us, a shovel and a wheelbarrow. And so, I tell people it's the Oakleaf Cottage workout program. I mean, we stay in really good shape around here. So,
I mean, what to have so much sweat equity in a place like that, to really shape it like you guys dreamed it together, you and your husband. I mean, to see the final fruits of that labor, I mean, it's got to be a real joy to look at every morning when you show up, right?
it is, but I think there's also times where you have to remind yourself to look back and see how much you've done.
Mm.
Because for us, we're constantly going, oh, we want to do this next, and this and this and this and this. And the list of things that we want to do here, the list of projects is it's pages long. And so I know for he and I both, we tend to get caught up in feeling almost like we're behind, because we thought up of certain things like years ago that we wanted to see happen. But, there's a million other things that have to be done first. It's like coming up this month, we're going to have air conditioning finally added to that barn. The reason why that took so long, and the reason why we're still working at it, is because, you have to finish insulating the ceiling of the barn. Well, the ceiling of the barn, that loft area, is entirely storage, which means you have to move all that stuff out of the way. And then, of course, you have to break out Mr. Pickaxe again, because it is situated right up against the side of the barn. So you're going to have to cut out another section of the mountain, put this unit in there. You're going to need a little retaining wall next to it so that things don't fall over time on your HVAC unit. Every little thing we do here is extra work. And so, yes, whenever that you're like, oh my gosh, we finally did this, and you feel like, okay, things are looking amazing, and we are very encouraged by everything that we see that we've done, and we are very proud of what we've done. We do have to take that step back. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people, or we do get caught up on our future list so much that we don't look back.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like a lot. I mean, taking out a piece of the mountain again so your HVAC unit fits on the side. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, you can't get a piece of machinery there. That's part of the problem. You can't get a piece of machinery there. You have to do that by hand. And
Right.
that's the way a lot of things have been. Like, we've rented things thinking, oh yeah, we can cut a channel for electricity. This was ages ago when we were bringing more electricity over to the barn. We thought, we could just use this. It was a piece of machinery. I don't remember what it was called, but we thought it could do that. Oh no, it's going to hit like a million rocks. And nope, here you are, pickaxe. 200 feet of pickaxe.
Oh man, I can't imagine how many days he was sore. I just from throwing that axe. I mean, I did a little bit of that as a kid, and I Yeah. That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, well, I mean, of course, perspective is everything, right? I mean, all these people show up and they see something different than what you see when you look at it. And are there any other like major projects that you guys have like on the horizon that are worth to our listeners, or are they mostly like all internal, like small little things?
There's some, the one thing I've learned um, is whenever you have this giant list of things that you really want to get done, your priorities change. So we could say, okay, for example, those brand new doors that we just put on the barn, they've got glass in them and everything. We wanted to put those in. We wanted to get that done like 2 years ago. You know, like we've had that on the books for 2 years. You don't want to announce it too soon because look, it took us 2 years, you know, like, yes, that's a project, but it took us 2 years to finally get around to actually finishing. Dave made those doors. He had to custom make those doors. And then we had to get the glass put in. And then we had to figure out how we were going to hang them because this is an existing barn. It wasn't designed for this kind of door. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, we're kind of hesitant to announce other things unless it's like the HVAC, which we've already paid for. So like that is happening.
Well, everybody can rest assured that they will be cool off the side of the mountain at your barn coming soon.
Yes.
I like it. So is the, what's the tell me a little bit about the culture in the Chattanooga area, which is I imagine that's probably where most of your was that where most of your traffic actually comes from?
No,
No.
no. I would say about 85 to 90% of our weddings are actually destination. We get very little out of Chattanooga itself.
Okay. Because Chattanooga is only like 20 miles or so from you, right?
Oh yeah, it's literally like 24 minutes to get to right to downtown. So it's very conveniently located to us. But I think between our setting and then having this cottage, we just became more of a destination. Um, and I don't mind. I mean, so like, yeah, we get a lot of people from Florida, which is where we're originally from. But then we've got like California, Colorado, and Utah, and New Jersey, New York.
No kidding.
They come from everywhere. Texas happens a lot.
Wow. And what have you done in those areas to make you even available to obviously you're in mass communications here. So this is a great question to ask you. What have you done to make yourself known in these for all these people in all these different states to find you?
Honestly, I think it's all in the hashtags and in how you set up the SEO on your website. I think initially for us, the destination part was kind of a happy accident. And then when we started seeing, well, this is definitely our trend, I just kind of started playing to it more and just using more of the hashtag. I started using the hashtag destination venue and that destination wedding venue or destination wedding. I use those a lot. And somehow that seems to pull it up, I guess. I mean, most people say they do find ours by our website. I know a lot of people follow us on Instagram, and some of them, I feel like they'll admit, "Oh yeah, I've stalked you for like a year." And so I'm not always sure exactly how they found us, but I do think I think a lot of it is the hashtags and
So
your
when
SEO.
you're hashtagging, oh right. So when you're hashtagging, is it actually Instagram that you're using when you're thinking about is it another social platform?
You do it there. And I underutilize Pinterest for this, but you can also use your hashtags on Pinterest. And then of course, whenever that you are naming your pictures before you put them on your website, you want to make sure that they have a name that is searchable. And
Yes.
that also adds to your SEO. So
Mhm. SEO is super important. People really, in our industry, we get so busy doing what we do that we don't think about always how people find us and that upfront cost of having someone that has those very specific set of skills to go through your website and to really zero in on trying to get more traffic to you organically is important. Ultimately, it always ends up being a pay for play business, but especially if you're talking about Google listings and such. But the hashtags and Instagram and stuff are so important. I feel like in the wedding industry, between Pinterest and Instagram, those are the two platforms that most people see the majority of their business come in on.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that because everybody is inspired by Instagram. You know, we kind of tend to stare at a lot. I admit several hours of my life tend to go there, more than I would like to see go there, but whatever.
I mean, that's how I found you. That's how this
Yeah, that's
conversation.
true. It is. It is.
Uh,
So, yeah, um, I thought I had another point. I don't remember what it was, so maybe we'll come back to it.
okay, yeah, no, I was going to say like Pinterest is a lot of people don't know that Pinterest is the #2 sales performing social media platform behind Facebook.
Right.
But
It is a search engine.
yeah, and Pinterest actually is more, it has a more like, if you're going to compare, it has a more Instagram-y feel, so to speak, than like a Facebook does.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's an unbelievable converting platform that I think more people need to take seriously in all walks of the wedding world.
Right. Now, the hard part with Pinterest is it just seems like it takes a few extra steps to get everything on there. It's like one more thing to do.
It is.
Like you could be in all places, but you would wear yourself out and you would do nothing but marketing
Mhm.
if you did that. And so you kind of have to pick and choose and say, okay, who's most important? Where do I see most of at least the immediate gratification? And Instagram's a very easy way to get that more instant gratification.
Yes.
Pinterest, it takes a long time.
Mhm.
And, I noticed this in interior design also. The stuff that by the time you start seeing things circulate on Pinterest, it's slightly outdated. It's been circulating around for a long time.
Mhm.
And so if you really want to stay on the trends, you need to be looking at Instagram. You need
Right.
to be looking at what's California doing, what's coming down the runway, so that's where you need to be looking if you want to stay ahead. And that's where you're going to see like the craziest ideas sometimes too, depending on who you follow. So
Yeah, I feel the same about Instagram. It's so instant and it's so like right now
mhm,
that it's a beautiful platform for people to be immediately inspired by something immediately brand new that was immediately created just a moment ago.
right.
Um, so that is one thing that I do love about Instagram. And their algorithms are pretty smart too. Like when you start to, show that you are very much interested in this one particular topic, say I'm looking for a wedding venue, and I click on one, immediately it pops up 4, 5, 6 other ones that are in your sort of general area.
Mhm.
Uh, they're the predictability of the algorithm as it pertains to what it is you're looking for in the geographical area that you're in is pretty
Yeah.
pretty well done.
Yeah. There's times that we really complain about that algorithm. But I mean, I definitely tend to be one of those, just please bring back the chronological feed. Like, but I understand why it's not there, but there are a lot of people that I feel like I really miss following, or I have to remember to go look at to see, hey, wait a minute, I haven't seen anything from Green Wedding Shoes lately. Let's go look,
Yeah.
so that's
You
kind of
know,
irritating.
in Australia, they're actually or maybe it's New Zealand, they're actually experimenting with getting rid of the like button, like the little heart.
Oh,
So you would actually then you wouldn't, because so many it's been linked to so much of like there's a lot of mental health issues that have come about from this whole like, well, my post wasn't liked and I'm a horrible person or whatever, which sounds, my Southern Indiana, like, male upbringing says, that's just weak, but it's true that it really does have I mean, the studies are out there. You can read them yourself. And my listeners could also do that too. The studies are out there that, the psychological effect of the like button is, is a very weird phenomenon. And so Instagram's actually experimenting with the idea of taking it away. And it just being a platform that you interact with people of what you see on the post. You can leave comments and stuff, but they're thinking about getting rid of the like button. Who knows whether they ever will or not? But because I'm sure they have their own way of tracking traffic and what photos getting looked at, or like, they can
right.
I'm sure they could pivot. I said the word. I'm sure they can shift to a different way of measuring all of that. But I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I had heard that they were going to play with that, and then I wasn't sure, I hadn't heard anything about it in a while. So it's interesting to know that Australia and New Zealand is going to play with that. I kind of have mixed feelings about it because as businesses, we kind of like to be able to have the analytics to know, hey, what do people actually like to see and what would they like to see more of? And so in some ways I'm not super happy with that because I do look at, what did people like or not like?
Right.
And sometimes it's all in like what I hashtagged it as, maybe it wasn't a super popular hashtag that I was pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I understand it. And I understand now, like the most recent changes on Instagram, they're going to do more measuring as far as like how long you're staring at different pictures in order to maybe decide like where to show things in your algorithm, in your feed. But yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it as far as getting rid of the like button.
It is interesting. I mean, it's very instant. It's a very instantaneous, real time way to say, oh, this post has been up for an hour and no one has liked it. It could be the time of day or the content. Either way, I'm yanking it down and I'll post it later.
Right.
If you're that dialed in on Instagram,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of different, that very thing, measuring, the validity of a post based on how long somebody stares at it. The fact that they can even do that is just so weird to me.
I don't like it. It's creepy.
Yeah.
I'll admit sometimes I'll be staring at, a sponsored post or an ad or something. I'm staring at because I'm trying to figure out what am I looking at?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh shiz, now I'm going to be like, they're
Yeah,
going to
now
send me more of this, and I don't care about this. I just didn't know what it was.
The alien technology knows.
Right. I mean, it's no different than if you were in the store and like in an antique mall and you pick up something just because you want to know what it is or what was it, or you're interested in something about it. And then it's like, oh, well, let's show you a million of those. And
Right.
No.
The retargeting is real. It is a real thing. If we're kind of in this very interesting world. If for my listeners who are listening, if you don't want and you don't want to then see 1,000 different lampshades when you were just looking for one, and you found your one, and now you're going to get inundated with like 5,000 of them. Just go buy like a VPN, and then you're gold because they can't trace you from that. So, and VPNs are like $9.99 a month or something like that, depending on who you get it from. So it is a pain, but it saves you from all that retargeting and all that stuff, which not a lot of people know. So, but yeah. So in wrapping this, I want to talk a little bit about you, and I want to talk a little bit about things that you like personally, because I feel that every prospective client that comes across that, bride or groom that is listening to this very right here, they're going to want to know more about you. And I think that this is a great time in which to do so. So I'm going to ask some PG-13 questions, and we'll see where this ends up. So tell me a little bit about you. What do you are you a big music person? Do you have like a favorite band or something of that nature?
I love to listen to music, but I'm one of those people that tends to go to Pandora and, depending on the mood, it'll be like Two Steps from Hell radio, or it could be Bon Iver radio. Sometimes we'll go back to the greatest hits of the 80s kind of thing. I mean, I'm not super adventurous on music. The only thing I don't much love is country, but other than that, everything's cool.
So you're a playlist kind of gal. You like to put on the playlist and then you go about your day, and it just the soundtrack of your day.
I got stuff to do.
Yeah, I hear that. I always ask that question because I have guitars on my wall.
I was looking at that. Yeah.
Cool. Is there a go-to favorite food that you like? What's your go-to?
I love various kinds of cuisine. So I absolutely love Indian. I love Thai. we cook a lot of Italian around here, a lot of like the old country kind of Italian. So there's a lot of beans and stuff going on.
Mm,
Vegetables, lots of vegetables.
yeah, rustic. Love it. One of my I can say this because I'm not in Chattanooga area and I have no hometown ties to it, but one of my favorite places to eat when I'm in the Chattanooga area is Main Street Meats.
Good
I don't know,
spot.
I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but
I have, yes.
yeah, it's totally one of my favorite places. I was traveling through on tour playing with a band, probably I don't know 6 or 7 or years ago or something, and this was back before they had built it out to what it is now. And it was just a little tiny butcher shop, and they only served burgers, and you could buy it like 2 ways, and it was on, and it was only at lunchtime. So I went to this butcher shop, and man, it was like the best burger I'd ever had in my life. And now they've grown into this beautiful space, and it's really cool. So every time I'm in the Chattanooga area, I always stop at Main Street Meats. It's like my
Yeah,
favorite. So shout out to
they're
this.
a great spot.
Yeah, little obsessed. That's cool. Are you like a sports gal at all? Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Nah, I have zero interest. Though my husband is a raging Buccaneers fan. He has been a fan since they started, and he will quote and rattle off every stat, every player's weight. I mean, the stuff he can rattle off about everybody is very impressive, but also like, why?
I didn't know all this knowledge.
Right.
I'm 100% the same way about several sports, particularly baseball. But yeah, love football. But yeah, I don't like the fact that my division rival has Tom Brady as their quarterback, and they beat us twice this year. Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are some of your hobbies then? Like if you're not like if you're a playlist gal and you guys do a lot of cooking at home and you're not really much into sports. What are you into?
For the most part, I'm outdoors a lot, and so I enjoy a garden, and I also call myself kind of a backyard herbalist. So I spend a lot of time like studying plants and making medicines, or actually like developing foods and yummy stuff from out here in the woods. So there's a remarkable array of plants that are quite edible.
Wow. Okay. So so you grow a lot of herbs that then you mix into actual like medicinal things.
To an extent, yes. So I do have quite the supply of tinctures, but then I also like to make different things like a hickory bark syrup. So that's, I mean, you'd be surprised how good it is. But, I mean, you're experimenting with different ways to make chickweed taste good. Like what else can you blend it with? So it's like you find this plant and you're like, okay, let me bring it to the kitchen. What am I going to do with it?
Uh,
And so, I mean, chickpea kind of has this like cornstalk kind of flavor. And so you're trying to figure out, how do I make that? Do I want it to be dominant? How do I want it to play in? Like what would make it shine or fade in the background better? Or
that's awesome. I have a few friends of mine that do something similar, and every year one of my friends gives me like a little jar of elderberry syrup that he makes, and that's like always like one of my favorite winter things that he does for me. Like he'll give me like a little jar of it, and I'll use it in just about everything.
yeah, elderberry is amazing. We have some here, but it just gets so much shade that we hardly get any berries. And so usually I wind up actually harvesting the flowers and making elderflower liqueur.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun.
I think it's great. So do you grow like any vegetables and stuff like too? Or is it mostly like on the herb and flower kind of side?
When we have like our usual garden, we usually grow things like tomatoes, and we like Japanese eggplant, some things that are just kind of out there a little bit, but still within the culinary fields of that whole Italian food domination.
I feel like there's a whole conversation I could have about that. But in the interest of time, I'll have to move. What is the overall like? Are you like a big reader? Do you like to read any books? If so, like what kind?
I love to read. Right now, I'm finally getting around to reading Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And, I study a lot of particularly Cherokee, as far as like Native Americans. And so it's it's a strong interest of mine. So anyway, it's been interesting to read her perspective on everything, and very eye-opening, honestly.
What's do you have any sort of family heritage just tied to that, or is that just a general interest of yours?
There's a rumor that there is Cherokee blood on my dad's side.
Mm.
So, it's not quantifiable. Well, I mean, supposedly I'm a 16th, but anyway.
Right. Sure. That's cool. I mean, I get it. My family is mostly English, I think. And my grandfather, before like 23andMe and all this stuff kind of came around, where you could just like give some DNA and everybody tells you everything about your life.
Right.
Um, my grandfather did years when he was years, like he has binders that are, this thick, and uh, he's got like a whole wall talking about like the history as it was passed down from like generation to generation to generation. And it's fascinating.
Mhm.
Fascinating. I telling my dad I'm going to steal the whole thing and bring it back home and read it, but he won't let me take it from the house yet.
My grandmother actually
That's
did like a whole bunch of genealogy, and we're actually primarily German. And so she has done so much family history. I know I'm like the 8th generation firstborn female. I mean, weird stuff like that. So yes, I mean, knowing your family history is so awesome.
mm. Well, for our fellow vendors that are out there that are listening to this, that have probably found a lot of encouragement from your real like, getting your hands dirty type of, building out of the venue of your dreams here. What word would you leave with them to encourage them on their particular journey that they're on? Maybe they're in a bad place, or maybe they're not feeling so good about where the world is right now as it pertains to their business. Is there a word of advice in the amount of time that you've been now in this industry that you could share with somebody that would, that you think that would, brighten their day? What would that be?
I would say keep going, because it's, they say so many times that before you find success, you almost are like, or right before, like right when you're ready to just give up is whenever you finally get some measure of success or start to see things turn. So I would say, yeah, like don't give up and hang in there, because I know this has been a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. Anybody who's made it through 2020, we've all got stories to share. We've all got war injuries, I'm sure. It's definitely been rough in a lot of ways. So I would just say, just keep the head up, keep going.
I love it. And that's where we will leave today. Again, Cris, thank you so much for taking the time to hang with Southern Wedding Professionals today, and me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Well, I'm so glad you did. And one day we'll have you back on, and maybe it'll be like post-COVID and we can laugh about the old days and talk about all the new things that we're doing.
That would be wonderful.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.